Today is Valentine's Day, a day for flowers, chocolates, sweet nothings, and kisses to be shared amongst lovers. A day for pining to become caressing, for passion to blossom. A day to spend time with another, your better half. Yes, it is Valentine's Day, and yet tonight you find yourself lying in bed alone, mourning another year of nothing more than wanting glances and vague fantasies directed at any person who might catch your eye, longing for anyone who might meet your standards, which, let's be honest, are pretty damn low at this point. As you drift off to sleep, hoping to cast off the burden of loneliness with a debatably deserved rest, you find your thoughts drifting back to exactly 1 year ago. A strange dream, more lucid and vivid than anything you had felt before or have felt since, wherein an odd creature, an incubus, came to visit you with promises of promiscuity and debauchery. Yes, it had promised to fulfill your wildest fantasies, to take you to the very peak of pleasure, all for the price of your soul. You had turned it down, of course, not willing to suffer eternal damnation for one good fuck, no matter how mind-blowingly orgasmic it might have been. You still had the rest of your life to look forward to. Hope that things would get better and that someday you'd find someone willing to do all that and more for no price at all. Unconditional love. And yet, at the end of it all, as the creature had finally relented his onslaught of innuendos, you caved in just a bit. Seeing it turn to go was seemingly more than you could bear at the time, and you called out, offering just a small fraction of your soul for a measly, pleasant, albeit awkward, conversation. Anything to feel like you weren't alone, like you mattered the tiniest bit to anyone else. Had it been worth it? Well, it didn't really matter, did it? It had just been a strange dream, an odd fantasy brought on by loneliness and jealousy for those that did have someone to spend this night with, even if it was only this night. That in mind, you honestly don't know why you turned it down at all. With how lucid the dream had been, you would think you'd have had the sense to realize that there was no consequence, that nothing you did would have mattered in the long run. But even still, in the moment, it had seemed so real, too risky. You couldn't prove that it wasn't real, that the supernatural world wasn't more than just the product of the overactive imaginations that writers have. Maybe it had been real, or maybe it had all been a dream. Regardless, it didn't really matter. It's been a full year since then, and not even a single mention of the creature in any of your dreams. Surely, if it had been real, if it had wanted your soul so badly, it would have returned by now, right? As you feel yourself drifting off to sleep, you begin to wonder if tonight, the anniversary of the dream and the creature's arrival, could be the night that it returns. Well, look who came crawling back. Couldn't stay away, could you? You open your eyes to find yourself lying in a 4-post bed, red velvet drapes hanging on all sides. Lying next to you, wearing nothing but a crimson bathrobe, is a young man with dark brown, shaggy hair, pale skin, and small, barely visible horns protruding from his head. He's lying on his side, his head propped up by one hand while the other made circles on the bed in front of him. As he wiggles his eyebrows at you, making what is presumably meant to be a sensual gesture, you recognize this young man, the incubus from 1 year ago. You smell even more desperate than last time. Were you thinking of me? Maybe you've put some more thought to my offer. Your mind goes back to your last encounter with this creature, his offer, the one for a good time at the cost of your soul, feels fresh in your mind as though it had only come up the day before. Now that you're faced with the choice, you feel as though there's no way you could really go through with it. And being put on the spot like this makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. It must be noticeable, because he immediately puts his hands up in a submissive gesture. Hey, don't worry, I was only kidding. Besides, I've got a few things planned for tonight to help you warm up to me. It has been a while after all. What do you say? How about a date, for old time's sake? A date? A small, contemplative noise leaves your lips as your eyes move to one of the bedposts, trying to ignore his stare as you consider the new offer. What kind of date could he plan to take you on? The last time he visited you, it had been in some sort of empty, black room more typical of what you would normally expect, albeit less imaginative. The room you find yourself in currently wouldn't work either, or at least it gives the impression of doing a lot more than just going on a date. Maybe there was a way for the two of you to return to the waking world, perhaps going to a restaurant or something. Would you still be wearing your pajamas, though? And if so, would he still look like a demon? You turn your eyes back to him and pose a question, asking how exactly this date would be carried out. Easy. We're in the dreamscape, right? It's basically a place where anything can happen, so long as you can imagine it. And while I'm here in your dreamscape, I can control things as I see fit. We could go anywhere, do anything, you name it, babe. The sky's the limit. Want a picnic with a cliffside view? Or maybe you want to snuggle and get cozy in the stands of a gladiatorial arena. I ain't here to judge. Name anything, and I'll get it done. You start thinking about potential dates as you try to wrap your head around the idea of a dreamscape and his ability to control yours as he pleases. That seems to carry a lot of implications that you'd rather not consider. Where would you want to go on a date? It's been so long since the last time you went on one. You can hardly remember what you liked about any of them, if anything, and what your preferences had been. Before you can voice this to him, as though he could read your mind, you really hope he can't, he interrupts you. Okay, that's fair. Guess I sort of put you on the spot. Let's just keep it simple then. How about we have a nice little candlelit dinner somewhere fancy? My treat. Before you can even muster a response, he raises his right hand and snaps his fingers. In an instant, everything fades to black, and you feel a strange sensation not too dissimilar to falling. A moment later, the sensation ceases, and your vision returns as you find yourself sitting in a large, yet empty diner of sorts. Small candelabras sit on each of the empty tables, making for the only light in the room, aside from the moon shining in through the glass ceiling. You sit at one of these tables, still in your pajamas, while the demon boy sits across from you wearing a black tux with a red tie and a white undershirt. On one hand, the idea of him altering your outfit feels a tad too invasive for your tastes. But on the other hand, you can't help but to feel self-conscious while sitting across from someone so well-dressed while you're still in your nightwear. You shift in your seat as he reaches for the wine glass next to him, filled with what you hope is red wine, and then lifts it up in a toast. Might I say you look as marvelous as ever. The moonlight does a lot to complement your eyes. You can't help but to get a little flushed at what is probably the first compliment you've gotten in years, genuine or not. You begin to feel, however, that whatever this is, seems more and more like a shallow attempt to win you over with each passing second. What were the odds that he just genuinely enjoyed your company enough to want to take you on a date? And even if that were the case, why wait an entire year to do so? It took only seconds for him to bring up this offer, and the very first thing he did when you arrived was call you desperate. Now he wants to have a nice, romantic night out? Your thoughts are momentarily interrupted as a waiter, or whatever he might be called at a place like this, approaches the table with a large plate in each hand. The waiter, human as far as you can see, has short black hair speckled with gray that seems to stand out in the moonlight. He's not quite as well dressed as the Incubus, but he seems to wear it better, and his overall posture and demeanor is more fitting of what you would expect at a place like this. Your eyes flick over to the demon as the waiter slides the steak cuts in front of you both, and you see him slouched in his chair attempting to pick dirt or something of the sort out from under his nail. He catches you staring and looks up at you, wiggling his eyebrows in an almost comedic fashion, as if his current demeanor was charming in some way. The more time you spend thinking about it, the more pathetic it really gets. What did he gain from showing up like this, preying on your loneliness? Hell, he could at least try to act a little more mature, maybe at least pretend to be interested in you in some way that even bordered on romantic, platonic, or fuck, even one of the other Grecian forms of love would do. At least it would be something. At least it would be better than this. The idea that he's only come here hoping to find you blinded by loneliness, hoping that you'd be willing to lower your standards and delude yourself enough to think that even just a few minutes of his time would be worth whatever price you pay for handing over your soul, it burns. You feel a fire in your stomach, and you feel the annoyance burning in your cheeks. Oh, this cut truly is to die for. It's so tender you can practically feel it melt. You wave your hand, cutting his sentence short. You demand to be taken home, and the anger must have been apparent in your voice because his face goes from a smug look to that of being emotionally wounded, like your words have been a knife in the back. This only burns you more. He's hurt. He's upset. Your mind starts to wander, wondering just how many other poor people he's done the exact same thing to. How many poor, lonely souls have had to sit here and put up with his shit the same way you have, and worse yet, how many people actually fell for it. You can't tell if you feel bad for them or not, but everything about this only serves to be an extra turn upon the rack. It's all so fake, so shallow. He can do this, but hadn't even bothered to create any sort of scenery the first time, and that smug look on his face, like he knows he's hardly trying at all. And to top it all off, that stupid voice. It sounded so forced, so fake. Not like he was trying to be sexy, but like he wanted to seem like he was trying. So low effort, so pitiful, so infuriating. Are you alright? Is it the food? I could, No. You are not all right. No, it is not the food. Home. Now. He snaps his fingers, and you return to the darkness of your so-called dreamscape that you saw the first time he appeared. Honestly, it's better than looking at whatever lame ideas he might have thrown together in the hopes of seeming romantic. Well, it's been fun. You cut him off and point in a random direction, demanding that he leave. You don't really know if there's any specific direction he would have to go to leave or how it works in the first place, but you don't really care. He found his way in, he can find his way out. Wordlessly, he looks away from you before fading into the darkness. You take deep breaths to calm yourself and lay down on the ground underneath you, hoping it will help you return to a more normal state of sleep. For a few moments, the ground feels strangely hard, but after a few more, it begins to soften, almost feeling like your bed, and you drift off to sleep, or something like that. You wake up in your bed, not feeling particularly well rested, and reach over for your phone to check the time. 9:47 a.m., February 15th. You sigh as you unlock your phone and begin your morning routine of checking every social media account you have. Man, you have really got to stop eating before bed.